Hey guys, today I'm going to be sharing your favorite purchases of 2023. I asked you over on my community tab, what was the #1 product that you purchased this year? What was your absolute favorite thing that you're so glad that you spent your money on? I got hundreds of responses and I narrowed them down to the best in every single category, which I'm going to use on my face today. And I love doing these videos because I think it's way more helpful to find out what the community at large is using and loving versus just me sitting up here and talking about my favorites because I'm just one person. So if that sounds good, why don't we go ahead and just jump right in and get started. Alrighty guys, so let's start with eyeshadow palettes first, and there was no contest with this one. Your absolute #1 pick was the I Need a Nude palette from Natasha Denona, and I don't blame you guys. This is a really beautiful palette. This was one of the most wearable palettes that came out in 2023, and I just love that it has that mix of warm and cool tones. It's just really pretty, and I think for those of us with lighter skin tones, it can be really hard to find a palette that doesn't go too dark. Whenever I use palettes, there's always going to be a few shades in there that I just never touch. But with this one, I mean, I use them all. So let's see what you guys had to say. I'm not going to read all the comments, just a couple. The first one says, Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude palette. It was my first high-end palette purchase ever, and I don't regret it one bit, worth every penny. Another person said, I Need a Nude is my perfect nude palette for my pale, cool skin. Finally, a high-end palette I can use all the shades. So that's kind of like what I was saying before as well. I think my only gripe with this is that it has kind of a lot of toppery shades in it and those really sheer metallics, and I prefer ones that have a little bit more pigmentation, but at the end of the day, it is still a really gorgeous palette. So I'm going to start with this shade Stone right up here. I love this color. It's kind of like a rosy gray shade, and I end up using this one a lot for my crease. So I'm just taking the A504 brush from BK Beauty and just drawing this right above where my natural crease would be. And then I'm going to blend it with the A503, also from BK Beauty. And I also think this palette just performs so well. The pigmentation is definitely there, but yet it's blendable. I think this was a great pick. I can see why you guys all really loved it. But if this one isn't in your budget, definitely check out the ColourPop 1111 palette. I've shown comparisons between the two on my channel, and I have to say that one is so close in terms of the colors. It doesn't have quite as many shades. It's a 12 pan. This one is 15, but it's less expensive and it has pretty much the same vibe as this. So that's just a lower cost option in case this one isn't in your budget. I mean, let's be real. Gas is like insane right now. Groceries cost so much money. And this palette, while it is absolutely beautiful, you know, it's a lot of money. All right, next I'm going to dip into this really deep brown shade called Silhouette, and I'm picking this up again on that A504. And I'm just going to put this one in my outer corner to deepen that up, just making small circular motions. I'm not going to get too complicated on my eye look today, although do I ever? Not really. I usually do pretty simple eye looks for the most part, and not because that's what I prefer, it's just that my skill level kind of prohibits me from doing anything too complicated, so that's fine. For my lid color, I'm going to use this one right in the center called Muse. This is a really gorgeous bright metallic gold shade. It's a little bit sheer like a topper, but it doesn't feel dry like a topper. It has that kind of buttery feel like a metallic shade would have, except it's a little more glittery versus smooth, kind of like a topper. So it's kind of an interesting formula, but it definitely makes a really big impact on your lids. Then I'm just gonna pick up the shade Whisper right here and just put this right in my inner corner. This is like a really pale champagne metallic shade. It's a little bit softer and smoother than Muse. It's not a lot of glitter. And by the way, I am using my NYX glitter primer underneath this Muse shade just to prevent any fallout. I don't really remember it having a ton of fallout, but just in case. The glitter primer just helps to keep everything contained really nicely and creates that nice sticky base for it to grip to. This is such a pretty palette. I know why you guys like it so much. I'm just gonna pick up the shade Stone again, the one that I used in my crease, and I'm just gonna run that under my lower lash line. Again, this is that A504 brush. This is like probably my most used brush. If you have hooded eyes, tiny little brushes like this are so useful, especially this one because it's not stiff. Like a lot of tiny brushes like this have a stiffness to them, and this one is fluffy, so you can actually blend with it at the same time. It's really my most used brush. I mean, you saw I use it in my crease, I use it for the outer corner, I use it underneath. So moving on to mascara. There weren't a ton of people saying that a mascara was their favorite product of 2023, but the one that came up the most for sure was the Clinique High Impact Hi-Fi Mascara. So let's read what some of you guys had to say. The first one says, this was the year of mascaras for me. I love Clinique High Impact, Hourglass Unlocked, that's my favorite, and One Size. And then another comment says, because of you, I discovered the new Clinique High Impact Hi-Fi Mascara, and it's become my holy grail. I never even liked a Clinique mascara before, so I was skeptical, but this one gives me a falsy effect and stays on all day. So I agree, this was one of my favorite mascaras that I tried this year as well. The Hourglass is my number one just because it's a tubing formula and I just love how easy those are to remove at night. This one takes a little bit more effort, which is why I don't wear it as much, but I think this one gives me bigger lashes than the Hourglass. Like this one makes such a huge impact, and I felt the same way as that one commenter said, that I've never liked a Clinique mascara before until this one. It is just so impactful. It just gives you that really huge false lash kind of a look, and it's pretty effortless. I feel like you don't have to do too many coats, and it stays on all day and it doesn't smudge, which is really nice too. The other Clinique mascaras I've tried, like they weren't bad per se. They just weren't my cup of tea because they gave like a really natural type of look. And this one gives your lashes a lot more drama, which is why I prefer it. All right, moving on to foundation. Again, there was no contest. Your favorite for the year was the Haus Labs Triclone Skin Foundation. I like this one. I didn't completely love it 100%, but I definitely want to try it again because it's been a little while now. I've been using other things, the Hamish BB Cream and the It Cosmetics CC Nude Glow. I haven't picked this up in a while, so I want to try it again. After reading all your comments, it kind of got me excited for it all over again. So the first one says, Haus Labs foundation, the best foundation I've ever used. It lasts and looks beautiful at the end of the day. The finish is skin-like, not too heavy, and matches my tricky light olive skin. So hard to find good shade matches for light olive skin. And then another one said, Haus Labs foundation #1 sits so well on my 58-year-old skin. The online color match actually worked too. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you as well. So I ended up with shade 130, which is light warm. And normally I wouldn't choose a warm finish. I would choose something cool toned, but I felt like this looked like the closest match online for my skin based on the swatches. It has a little bit of a peachy undertone, but it didn't look super yellow. So, all right, I'm just gonna go in with a damp sponge. This is from Sigma. But either way, I didn't think the shade match was terrible. I thought it was pretty good overall. It's not like a heavy, cakey kind of a feel, and it gives a little hint of a glow, but it's not sparkly like the Makeup by Mario one was. I would say it has a nice satiny finish. It has great coverage, as you can can see. And I also thought this formula wore well throughout the day too. It didn't wear away super fast. Then when it comes to concealer, I honestly wasn't surprised to find out that the Haus Labs concealer was also your number one. So let's see what you had to say. The first one says, Haus Labs concealer has been the only concealer I've been using since it came out. Also, the I Need a Nude and ColourPop 1111, can't stop reaching for those two to the point where I had to force myself to use other things. And then another comment said, Haus Labs concealer. It wears really well on me and looks so skin-like. Also loving the Milk Hydro Grip setting spray. So I do really like this one as well. I talked about it in my best and worst complexion products video, but I think I like the Natasha Denona High Glam just slightly more than this one. This one can be a little bit thick. I have to be careful with it because the formula definitely has some weight to it, but I like how smooth it looks on the skin, and I like that it doesn't seem to settle into fine lines and wrinkles. But on days when my skin is more dry, which is kind of a lot this time of year, I think the Natasha Denona High Glam one, it's just a little bit thinner and it feels a little bit more hydrating. But otherwise, I do really like this one. It's a nice medium coverage. And again, it's a nice skin-like finish. It's not glowy and it's not super matte, which is just perfect. I don't usually want a lot of glow around my eyes, and anything that's too matte is usually too drying. So this is definitely a really, really nice formula. Moving on to cheek products, I would say this is the number one response that I got across the board. Like if I had to just pick one thing that was everybody's number one, it would be this. And it's the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit palette for this year. So they came out with a couple different ones. I got the jellyfish one, but they also had one that I think had like a leopard on it, one that had an owl. They were all kind of for different skin tones. So this was the lightest option. And let's see what you guys had to say. There were so many responses, so I just picked a couple. The first one said, I was able to use my Ulta points to purchase both the leopard and jellyfish Hourglass face palettes. I'm really glad I did. The blushes, bronzers, and highlighters are beautiful. The setting powders are lovely. It also struck me today that these palettes are one of the very makeup items I own that are not made out of cardboard and or plastic. The Hourglass face palettes are housed in this beautiful, strong packaging. It feels kind of like metal. I don't know if it is plastic, but it feels like metal. When I eventually use up the powders, I want to keep the tin packaging because it is so genuinely gorgeous. Another person said, I splurged and bought the Hourglass Jellyfish palette when Ulta was offering a coupon you could use towards it. I really love the palette being an all-in-one option. I wore it out for the first time and got 2 compliments. It gives such a beautiful look to the skin. Another person said, so glad I bought the Hourglass Leopard palette. It suits my olive colored skin. And yet another one says the Owl Hourglass Ambient Palette. Even though it's my first Hourglass product, I will repurchase it again and again. I have to force myself to use other face products. I don't know if these are going to be like a limited edition. Usually the holiday palettes are. So if you love it that much, I would buy another one as soon as you can, because usually once these are gone for the year, that's it. And then next year they'll come out with a new one. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick up the blush from this palette. But yeah, this powder is really, truly stunning. It goes on like a dream. It blends so easily. It looks very seamless. It gives your cheeks just that little hint of glow, but it's not sparkly, which is amazing. And this blush color is just so subtle and pretty too. So if you have a lighter complexion, a lighter skin tone, I think this whole palette, you can use every shade. I am just gonna pop a little bit of bronzer on just to warm up my face. So I'm just gonna put it with the blush and maybe just add a little bit to my forehead. This bronzer color is also so pretty. These powders are just ultra smooth. They're just gorgeous. All right, I'm just gonna pick up the highlighter right here in the corner and just put a little bit of that on the high points of my face, just on my cheekbone. And this is really smooth too. It's not an overly glowy highlight, it's just perfect. It adds that nice kind of pearly sheen, but I don't feel like it highlights too much of my texture. I mean, any highlighter is going to a little bit, but it's honestly not bad. I'm just gonna take a little bit of this finishing powder down here and I'm just gonna apply that to my forehead and nose, a little bit on my chin. By the way, this is the Real Techniques blush brush. I'm just kind of using it as an all-over powder brush because it's really big. And Hourglass finishing powders really do such a nice job at kind of blurring the pores and making your skin look more airbrushed. So overall, I mean, this is just Such a gorgeous palette. I really have been enjoying it too. And then your favorite lip product by far was the Summer Fridays lip balms. And I have to say, these are one of my favorite lip products of the year as well. I haven't done my best and worst lip products yet. I definitely will do that soon. But just a sneak peek, these are amazing. So let's see what you guys had to say. The first one is the Summer Fridays Butter Balm in Pink Sugar. Love the scent of that one. It doesn't have much color, but it smells really good. And another person said, Summer Fridays Lip Butter Balm. I thought the price was insane, $32.50 Canadian for a lip balm, but it's worth every penny. I agree. The first one of these I bought was just on a whim. They had them at the checkout counter at Sephora, and I wasn't planning on buying it, but I remember I had a gift card and I was just like, you know what? I still have more money on it. I'm just gonna try one. And it was actually this color, Vanilla Beige, and I thought it was just such a beautiful hint of tint for your lips. And I love how these don't feel sticky. Like they have a nice glossy finish, but they kind of have the feel of a lip oil. They're so hydrating, and they're one of those products that gives your lips color, but they're sheer enough that you could just apply it without a mirror if you're on the go. I actually bought the set, the holiday set with the little minis in it that I keep in my purse, because I used to keep these in my purse, but then when I wanted to wear them when I was in the house, I'd have to go downstairs and dig and try to find them. So this way I have little purse versions, and then I have these bigger ones up here in my makeup room. So I'm just in love with how good these make your lips feel and how lightweight they are. Not to mention the scents are so good. This one smells like vanilla cupcakes or like cake batter. The Pink Sugar one smells like pink sugar. There's a brown sugar one that's one of my favorites. So they smell like the name, and they're just a pleasure to use. I find myself reaching for them so much. So anyway, guys, this was so much fun learning about all of your 2023 favorites. I had to agree with most of them, and I found it interesting that almost everything, or was everything, high end. I don't think there were any drugstore products listed here. So that's kind of interesting. But if you guys like these types of videos where you talk about your favorites, I have a whole playlist of them. So I'll go ahead and just put that right here in case you want to check some of those out as well. And I want to thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit the subscribe button before you go. And I will see you all in my next one. Take care, guys. Bye.